This is Monica Perez here with our returning guest, whoops, who I think somehow got kicked off. Let me see about that. Here he is. Our returning guest, Gabriel Custodiet from the Watchman Privacy Podcast, who has taught us before all about keeping private in this highly surveilled world. So I'm very happy to have him back. Hi, Gabriel. How are you?
I'm doing great. I want to say that I've been catching up on some of your shows, and I think it's excellent. I think you have some great takes, and you do very good research as well. So I definitely appreciate that.
Wow, I am highly complimented because I know what high standards you have and what great research you do and how much you know about your subject matter. So I'm truly complimented. But I want to hear a little bit about so that's new for me. I started to do kind of, daily news analysis a couple of times a week. That's new since last time we spoke. How about you? What's new since, what are you working on and what's been going on?
Well, so my podcast, as you mentioned, is the Watchman Privacy Podcast. That's basically where most of my stuff is happening these days, and I'm just keeping the fight for freedom and privacy. Obviously, my thought process is that privacy is an important element of freedom. And so I focus on that aspect of it. And I find that freedom naturally flows once one is more private. And so I'm just teaching more people more ideas about how to keep private digitally in your real life with the ultimate threat model in mind, which is, your own government. Let's not kid ourselves. And so I have people on, experts on, and ask them all kinds of questions. And we have been learning to lock down our phones and computers, just continue all the good stuff, Bitcoin and Monero. And yeah, just continue to do all that, and do have some other things coming up, but I'll certainly mention them as we go along here.
And I noticed that it seems to me that everything you do is on YouTube. Have you ever had problems with, does YouTube mess with you because you're teaching people how to defend themselves against the empire?
Well, one of my first episodes was how to get off of big tech, and probably they didn't like that. And I talk about all kinds of naughty things for sure. So I'm sure I've been shadow banned. In fact,
Yeah.
there's a lot of evidence of that. I just go on YouTube because that's easy to give links. I'm also on Odyssey, Rumble,
Oh, yeah.
BitChute, and I
No,
have a
YouTube's
podcast.
great.
So the podcast goes to all the podcast platforms, Spotify, etc. And I have a RSS feed for the hardcore people out there. So I just get it out there as best I can. And
Do you have a
if
link
I ever
tree?
get shut down,
Do you have a link tree?
I
Like
don't
this
have
shows
a
all of your links in one place.
I don't. So it's on my website, watchmanprivacy.com. It
Perfect.
shows all the possible links. And you know what, Monica? Linktree. I'm not a big fan of Linktree. I use it in other business endeavors that I run, but Linktree, in my opinion, is well, they actually censor. I don't know if you knew this, but they were actually censoring BitChute links a while back. I'm not sure if they changed. So in my view, it's just another big tech quote unquote platform
Yeah.
that has a potential to shut you down. So I like websites a lot more than link trees, because at least with the website, you're in control, and there are very few instances of your website host provider kind of messing with you. So
Yeah, I realized that that was an actual big change, that that's the way things were going, was everybody was just having their own websites, and then we started aggregating on social media, and I used WordPress for my website, and it was so easy to use, and I used to spend it would take a whole day. I'd write a beautiful blog piece, and I would mess with the formatting, and I had this whole like news feed on the side. It was really gorgeous, or I loved it and I enjoyed it. And they pulled that Alex Jones thing with Noah Posner, and I had a picture of him on there, and they shut me down so hard, and I could barely even get like my unformatted text back, and it so demoralized me and derailed me because I'm not good at that stuff. I never really recovered. I never blogged again or anything. It's just funny that I was using a website, but I had just a platform that was easy to use, and that really, if I'd only taken a little more ownership of what I was doing, then I would have really a great platform myself. But watchmanprivacy.com, there it is. Perfect. It's got everything you need right there.
can I
Fantastic.
yeah, can I ask you, Monica, about that particular situation? Because you were using a WordPress website? Who was it that
It
gave you
was
the shutdown?
So WordPress was the company I was paying $100 a year to for a business plan. So I had a personal like consultant there, and because you could get WordPress for free or $35, maybe it was a month, I don't know, but I was paying a premium to have this premium thing. But it was now I use like Classic Press or whatever is like the thing I'm using, but this was WordPress was the company, and they had after the Alex Jones thing where what happened was the BBC and other places put this picture of Noah Posner up from the thing that happened in Connecticut as a victim with a different name massacre. They gave him a different name. It was the same kid in a leather jacket with the lamb's wool collar. It was the exact lamb's fur skin collar. It was the exact same picture. And all I did was I posted like a couple of pictures and wrote on my website, "This is crazy." And I didn't say anything else, and I got a notice that said, "You need to take that down because this kid's father says that he owns that picture." And I'm thinking, well, first of all, I didn't say it was that kid. The BBC said it was a different kid, whatever. And I took it down. I was like, there were 3 pictures. They identified one. I took it down. And then they said again, they were like, "We want you to take the other pictures down." And I'm a lawyer, my husband's a lawyer. We went to law school. We're not practicing lawyers. And they both said, my husband said, "That's fair use. It's the BBC published it. You're just reporting on a news story. They absolutely do not have the right to ask that. Fuck them." And I was like, okay. So I left it up, and they didn't take the picture down. They took my entire site down, and my guy there, I forget his name, but I could look it up. The guy I used to talk to all the time, he was so nice and helpful, wouldn't even answer me. And it was gone forever. And fortunately, a listener, Nacho Slave, told me, "Go and see, they'll have your XLM or whatever, like it'll be there. If you have access to the back end right now, go grab that, download that," which I did. And then after a few days, my access to the back end was totally shut down too. And I never got it back.
Yeah, so you have 2 entities with WordPress. You have WordPress.com and WordPress.org. As far as I understand, WordPress.com, maybe this was the service you were using. This is a kind of your typical centralized
Yeah,
service.
definitely WordPress.com. Definitely.
Right, right. So what WordPress.org, WordPress is a free and open source software. This is all the stuff we like. So if you are running a WordPress.org, is the website. If you're running the software of WordPress on your website, then they don't know anything you're doing. This is free and open source software. There's no centralized service. You own all of that stuff. And at that point, only your host provider can take you down. And so what I tend to recommend people is to go to use host services, even outside the US, that are kind of beyond
I
cancel
have
culture.
that now.
Right.
I
And
have
so
that now. Yeah.
like one thing I recommend is like Orange website in Iceland. And they have kind of a reputation of just giving the middle finger to anybody who tells them to shut things down. And then so you could have your website host service on Orange website, and then you're using the service, free and open source software, WordPress.org, and that's the closest thing to ownership that you can have with a website. So just want to make that distinction.
And I do, thank you. And I do use that. I do it that way now. But the problem is I'm so bad at that kind of like graphics interface thing. I'm great at spreadsheets. Like I can totally do like cells and numbers and stuff, but like the visual, I'm not great at it. So I can't intuit it the way WordPress.com. It was so intuitive. It was really made for idiots like me. And but if I put more time in it, it's I just was demoralized as the basic problem. So
Right.
I should probably get back into that. And now that my kids are in college, I'll probably have more time and I can do it because it was so fun I just loved writing. But do people even read anymore? Like do you blog? Do you write articles? I know you write books. Um, I love
I
the Watchman Guide
Yeah,
to Privacy, Reclaim Your Digital Financial and Lifestyle Freedom. That I think people do, but I just wonder if people even if we're just better off podcasting.
I think you are better off podcasting. I don't do any blogs or anything. I agree that that is not something people really are looking for. And so people are, at least the way I've created my content is for an audio audience. And so podcasting is perfect. Throw that up on a few video websites and call it a day. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have some other full length book projects that are hopefully coming out soon. I think some people will read a book and I'll make an audiobook of those as well, because I know a
Yes.
lot of people want to listen to it. But yeah, I agree that the kind of the world of blogging, even though you have Medium and Substack and some people like that,
Yes,
but
people love the Substack and the articles. I mean, the people I subscribe to have absolutely great articles, Delling Poll and Miri AF. Like, I love the articles, but for me, I don't even really like to listen to podcasts that are similar to my own, because like the same kind of like analysis stuff, because I want to have my original ideas, but I love information like what you deliver. And if I'm cleaning or going for a walk or in the car, I mean, you could read a book while you're doing all those things. It's great. I mean, people are so hooked on podcasts, and maybe too much, but it is really a great way to get information with and do something else at the same time. Maybe it's spiritually wrong to like have your mind in two different places. I don't know, but I'm a busy gal, and I love the format. So, and I
yeah,
love stuff like yours because it's real information. And we were going to talk about today the what's always fascinated me, and I don't even know how to access it. I mean, the only thing I know about the like dark web is Ross Ulbricht, that horrible tragedy of him going to jail for something he absolutely did not do. The guys who were investigating him went to jail for malfeasance in his case, and he was not allowed to bring that up in his own trial. But beyond that, all that tells me is the dark web is an actual threat to the system beyond anything that I've actually, that's the most legit. That is not a psyop. What's happening to Ross Ulbricht, and there has to be a reason for that. So, if you can even just tell me what it is, I don't even know how to think about it or how to get to it.
yeah. So the dark web, the deep web, these are basically interchangeable terms. Maybe the dark web is a editorial comment
Yeah, I
on the
know.
subject, but
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter either way. This is basically, well, first of all, there's a lot of stuff on the internet that you just can't really find on a search engine, and partly that's because it's behind a paywall or it's in a database behind a login or something. So that's kind of included in the deep web, all those archives and things of the sort. Which is technically, if you have the right credentials, you can get into that stuff. And I like to note that that's just another reason to lock down your accounts a lot, because this internet thing, it means that we're all connected. And Monica, I don't know what bank you use, but that same bank login page that you go to can be accessed by anybody in the world, and they can also try to log into there. And if they have the right combination or find a little workaround, they can get in there too. So just a point about making sure to be using good random passwords, password manager, and two-factor authentication. But the dark web is a place where it's basically, I think the common definition, it's a lot of websites that are just not indexed by search engines. And they're not indexed by search engines, partly because Google doesn't want you visiting them, also because they have random strings of characters that are their domain website, and also because these websites don't really want to be indexed by Google. And so in order to access them, you need to really, it's kind of a word of mouth thing. It's kind of weird. There's no place where you go to the dark web. Now I'm on the dark web. Basically, you do want to be using a service like Tor, the Tor browser, because that's the only way to access certain websites. And so anyway, I can go into the process, but just as an
Excuse
overview.
me.
So
What didn't the CIA create Tor?
yeah,
Does it
so
matter?
okay, okay. I always appreciate the skepticism. I
I don't
absolutely
care. I
do.
mean, I don't know it doesn't matter. Whatever limited hangout, you can get more out of it than it gets out of
Right.
you. You're
So
smart.
I think Edward Snowden says it best. Maybe we don't believe Edward Snowden, but we gotta
He's
have
not always
truth
wrong. He
somewhere.
can't always be wrong, or it wouldn't stick.
So Edward Snowden says Tor is one of these examples of a government project that ended up being one of the best protections we have from the government. And so it was developed, I believe, by the Navy, or anyway, some
Yeah.
part of the
Okay.
U.S. government, and they made it publicly available to people. My friend believes that that is because it created more anonymity for them, right? If more people are using this service, and so eventually it became a open source software, so we can see everything that's going on in the Tor software, and at that point, everybody can look
Oh,
at it.
wow. Okay. So really
Yeah,
doesn't matter where it came from.
exactly right. So that's the reason we like free and open source software, is because
Nice.
security researchers, everybody can look at the code line by line. You can see what's happening. There's nothing happening in the dark, and you can either trust other people, or if you have the chops, do it yourself. And it's a trusted service by whistleblowers and people in tyrannical regimes, which might very well be your own, by the way.
I have to say, the US government is planning on making it illegal to open source AI. So the whole open AI thing, that in itself is getting us ready for it to close. We can talk about that another time, but that is I was like, why is that so bad? You're not allowed to have that the US government is trying to have a law where you would go to jail if you if you do open source AI stuff.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
Oh, thank
Your
you.
recent episode. Yeah, I like that, and I think that's a good point about how open source is nice, but at the end of the day, they certainly want to restrict certain things, and the whole push for AI is, in the one sense, it doesn't seem like anybody is going to hit the hit the brakes on that, and they have their reasons because, if we stop, then China won't stop, and all this sort of thing, and you can't stop progress. And but one thing they'll try to do, of course, is to make sure that the code is not open source, because once something is open source, you basically have a freedom tool that anybody can use and modify and save and change and all the rest. So yeah, I can obviously see why they would want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So Tor is the way to get in.
Yes. So just let me just give an overview, and then I want to make sure people are protected as they go in. So just the overview. So there are some websites that you can only access using Tor, and basically once you get in there, this is the uncensored internet, right? This is the 1990s, early 2000s internet, where you have to know a website.
Yes.
You have to know the actual URL to get there.
Yes.
And it's a lot of word of mouth, and you have a lot of you'll go to a website that's supposedly a legitimate search engine, and there's ads for porn websites or things like this. So it's definitely something you don't want your daughter looking over your shoulder while you're looking at the dark web, because it's just it's an old-fashioned uncensored internet, and one or two clicks and you might be on a website that's selling crack, right? So it's a freedom internet in a way, but you also have to be obviously careful. And here's where I want to step back, if you don't mind, Monica, and just give people a few basic privacy tools, which will help them in their regular life as well. And it will certainly prepare them for
writing
Tor.
that. Let's do the privacy tools for freedom lovers.
Absolutely. So these days, at a minimum, I definitely recommend, especially if you're going into a potentially adversarial environment like the dark web and you want to start searching around, I would definitely suggest everyone consider getting onto a Linux computer. And Linux is an operating system, or one of many operating systems, and it's not as difficult as you would think. If you're on Windows, you should definitely be getting off of Windows. The CEO of Microsoft recently, they announced that they were considering this service where it would take a screenshot of your Windows 11 browser every 5 seconds and use it to give you suggestions. I mean, that's just the way that Microsoft thinks. So if you're on
phone flash every once in a while. Have you ever seen that? And I'm like, what was that? Every once in a while. Anyway, but
so I don't think
I believe you.
Yeah, I don't think it's rolled out yet.
Not yet, yeah.
I actually don't use Windows. I haven't used Windows or Apple for a while.
You're the guy. You're the man.
But they got a lot of pushback from that. But that's just the way that these people think. So for privacy and security reasons, I would definitely recommend Windows users get onto a Linux operating system. You can just grab your an old laptop or computer lying around and install Linux on it. There's lots of tutorials for it. Or you can, another option for people is to look into Tails. And Tails is a Linux operating system that exists only on a USB drive. So it's pretty simple to install it on a USB drive, and you just plug it in, restart your computer, you boot to Tails. And the whole of Tails is protected by the Tor network, not just the browser, but everything you do in there. So it's a nice little handy way to isolate a certain part of your life. And then once you remove the USB drive, it erases all of your history. It was only existing on your RAM, and it never touched your hard drive. So it's a pretty nifty tool. So you pull out the USB drive, and all evidence of that is gone, unless somebody theoretically was able to literally freeze your RAM within seconds after doing that, which is unlikely. So that's a pretty useful tool.
Tails, Tales?
Yes, Tails.
Tails. Okay, Tails. And how do you get that on an like, I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff.
No,
Like, that's on a
so yeah,
USB?
just search for Tails, and this is not shady stuff. This is they always mark this stuff as for whistleblowers or for people in tyrannical regimes. So it always has nice smiling people on the website, which I think is good branding on their part. And it's true that this is used for
Oh, yeah. Boy, that's
yeah.
easy.
So, and you'll just follow the instructions and install it on a USB. And that's a nice, easy way to have a little bit of isolation without going through the process of fully installing Linux onto a computer or something, which is ultimately what I would recommend. And so I also recommend just people in general be using a reputable VPN. And in my estimation, that would be iVPN or Molvad. The VPN is basically going to hide your internet activity from your internet service provider. So that's an important step, and what everyone should be doing, running a VPN. I do it all the time, but at least do it when you're doing searches. And if you do it before you install Tails and the Tor browser, then your internet service provider won't see that you're actually installing these
Oh,
things.
wow, great.
Yeah, so running a VPN, good operational security, especially for all aspects of your life, is simply be careful what you click on. Don't just input information. Don't download random things. You can realize that you can hover over a link and you can see the actual URL that it's taking you to before you actually click on it. That's a useful thing, especially if you're getting scam emails. So just have a good kind of lockdown mindset of not being trusting and not just clicking and certainly not downloading or inputting information just because it's being asked of you. If you're running a Linux operating system or Tails, you're pretty locked down from various malware. Malware is not a huge threat anymore. Mostly these people who were previously making viruses have moved on to more profitable things like scamming by email and Telegram and all the rest. So that's the reason why there's been a decrease in viruses in the last years. And so, but once you do these things, the VPN, obviously we need to download the Tor browser. If you're just using your regular computer, download the Tor browser. This is also a nice public website. You just search for the Tor browser and download it. And then once you start it up, it is going to connect. And the way that Tor works is, so Tor is a service and the Tor browser is just a way of accessing the service. It basically routes your traffic through 3 different points around the world, 3 different servers. And it does 3 because that way each one can have incomplete information of the one connected to it.
Nice.
So basically, it's one of the strongest ways we have of using the internet without anybody knowing what we're doing. So the Tor browsers definitely should be on the list of anybody who cares about their freedom and privacy. And once we get the Tor browser, then we will be able to more easily access the dark web and also have some protection, of course, from our internet service provider saying that we accidentally clicked on that ad or some crack dealer. So that's also pretty handy.
This is great. Great stuff.
Yeah. So obviously have a little bit of that operational security before you start going into all this. I also just want to kind of refresh people about some fundamentals of web searching. So I believe I talked about some of this in a previous episode, so I'll just pass over that briefly. But
Thank you. Yeah, it's been very helpful. I'd love for you to summarize it again.
Yeah, so of course, how most of us access the internet is we're using Google, or maybe we think that we're using a good alternative like DuckDuckGo, and suddenly we get access to the truth on the first page. Of course, we know that stuff's being filtered. My friend Jessica Solche has a documentary on 3D printed guns called Death Athletic.
Death Athletic. I interviewed her. She was very nice to talk to. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Absolutely. And her website was not even being shown on the first page of DuckDuckGo, much less Google. And so I tweeted about it. I think the tweet went viral. Maybe that caused something, but then DuckDuckGo changed because, I mean, it's her main website. You should think that you type in her documentary and her website, it at least shows on the first page. So there's all kinds of filtering being done. The first thing you can do as a person interested in finding the truth is just use multiple search engines. So Google is different from, you can even use Bing. Actually, Bing is Microsoft's search engine. Yeah. At least it's something different. At least it's a competitor. It will give you different results. And actually, DuckDuckGo, I believe, kind of piggybacks off of Bing. So you should get similar results. You can also use, and this one I like a lot, is Yandex. Now, Yandex is a Russian
Yes.
search engine.
Love it.
Yeah, similar to RT. Like if you investigate it, it's going to say, yeah, it's a Russian propaganda, this and that.
Mhm.
Well, sometimes that's going to give you different things than your own censored, government-controlled search engine from your own country, right? So obviously, we can see through all that silliness of, oh, this is Russian, so it's bad. It's Russian, so it's good, because it gives you a different
Exactly.
perspective, right?
Yep, I
So
agree.
Yandex is a great search engine. And for example, when I searched for Death Athletic, this 3D printed gun documentary, when I found it wasn't showing on Google or DuckDuckGo, searched on Yandex, first result. So that gives you a sense of the how sometimes a country adversarial to your own has its benefits, obviously.
Any
Uh,
competition has
right.
even if you're a hardcore libertarian, it doesn't hurt to find out what the Communist Manifesto says.
Absolutely, certainly. And so another website people might check is bvsg.org. That stands for Bing versus Google. So B versus G, bvsg.org. It'll show you half the screen will be the Bing results and half the screen will be the Google results. And so you can just get a sense of the difference in search results. There's a handy website called millionshort.com, millionshort.com. And it requires an account to use now, which is unfortunate, but you
Yeah.
can also just create a burner. But basically what it does is it market itself on, we're going to show you the search results, but we're not going to show you the first million. So we're
That's
going to
so
start with the
great.
million, and you'd be surprised what kind of things can come up once you get past
Yeah.
the first page, much less the first 999,000.
Yeah, I
It's
did
pretty
join it
interesting.
because it is useful. I noticed that it switched over to where you had to,
Right. And,
um
and part of this, Monica, is that we're not, there's no perfect solution out there. It's just we're trying to access different information. We're trying to access the truth from a different vantage point. And so that's just, some of these services are not perfect. They're not ideal. They're, spammy, or they are going to give you garbage. But, you just try them and kind of see what sticks. There's another useful website. It's called boardreader.com. And the reason I like Board Reader is it actually searches in forums. So typically, there are a lot of people who use forums these days. Still a ton of people who use the old-fashioned forum, right? I think anybody who's at least 30 years old remembers what an online forum is. And boardreader.com actually searches through forums. It's not perfect, it's not amazing, but unlike Google, which is not really tending to search within forums or
mhm.
forum posts, Board Reader will do that, and you'll find interesting forums as a result, and you'll
Oh,
find
yeah.
interesting
Yeah.
topics.
Yeah, and
So
actually, I have noticed that sometimes you'll get to a site and it's hard to search within the site, but if you search more generally, you can find if you go to a search engine and search, so if you wanna search for a topic and you use this, it may actually get deeper into the website than if you actually went to the different places and tried to search within them.
definitely, yeah. So it's just kind of, we're tweaking the way that we think about search, because I think a lot of us are just programmed, like we put it into Google, it's at least going to get us to
Yeah.
the truth. But this is kind of the concept of
Oh,
the
yeah.
deep web, which is that there's a lot of stuff that's just not being indexed by a lot of search engines, and we're just looking for that little glimpse of the crystal from a different perspective to completely change the way we see things. So sometimes
Wow.
that's what we're looking for.
I was just thinking of that yesterday. There was a guy, oh, I think it's Hans Utter, who does all this research on like the Grateful Dead and the kind of CIA stuff that was going on with the counterculture in the 60s and 70s. And I said to the guy who's recommending it to me, I was like, yeah, but I'm mystified. He's obviously a great researcher, totally legit information, but I try to research some stuff and I just hit walls and I don't know how people get any deeper than that. And I just didn't make the connection that that's what we'd be doing. Well, like when I thought we were gonna do the dark web, I thought you were literally gonna tell me how to buy crack. Not that I want it. You can get legal stuff. You just ask your doctor, you can get the, whatever pharma crack you want. But yeah, I wasn't even thinking of it as a way to go deeper on the research.
Right. And so right now we're not, I guess some of this could be considered the deep web, but we're not even necessarily talking
Yeah,
about the dark web
right.
yet. A lot of these are just, obviously, if you use the Tor browser, that's good to do anything because that is anonymizing you. And it's anonymizing more than just your internet traffic. It also has a lot of anti-fingerprinting technology built within the Tor browser, because websites are pretty sophisticated. They can tell how many fonts you have installed on your computer, what your pixel resolution is for your monitor, and with enough pieces of information, they can pinpoint you as, okay, they don't know that you're Monica, but they know that you're
Wow.
the user with the extra fonts installed using these two
Wow.
extensions, and you're using this particular screen resolution. So the Tor browser, and there's other good browsers like LibreWolf is another one, blocks a lot of that stuff, and that's kind of crucial. Fingerprinting is pretty unappreciated in seeking privacy, so that's another
So
benefit.
so you have a unique profile.
Yeah, your fingerprint. That's why they call it fingerprinting. And if you go to a website like deviceinfo.me, so deviceinfo.me, you can see the website is just showing you certain things that it can detect about you, your time zone, um, your IP address, which can pinpoint you if you're not using a VPN into a couple miles of where you live, if not closer. And as I said, your screen resolution, all these sorts of things can pretty quickly say, okay, we know, we don't know that this is Monica necessarily, but we do know that this is the person who has all these characteristics.
I one thing before I forget, I want to ask you about. So I'm putting all these URLs up and on the screen, but the listeners on the podcast can just hear what you're saying. Uh, so when I remember the day the internet shut down, it was February 14th, 2018. I had a radio show I was supposed to do, and it was the Parkland shooting thing, whatever that was, event happened. And I was great prior to that day at immediately getting to kind of citizen journalism. People who were there, seeing their videos, I could figure out what was happening. Other like really good truth writers, like American Everyman was like the absolute best, and he would just figure it out like this. I could find the answers before showtime. I had a live show, and it was, you had to have it done in time, and I could just within 24 hours I could crack the code. And on that day, alternative stuff just was gone. You couldn't find it on YouTube. I couldn't crack the code anymore. I mean, I could kind of guess what was happening always, but I used to be able to prove it. And I'm wondering if, as we get into the conversation about the dark web, if that stuff is still there and there is a way to find it, or if it's just not even there anymore. Maybe people were demoralized because there's no place to put it. Like I remember live, what was it called? It was like Live Link or something. There was a great website that had all that stuff, and I feel like that's gone, but maybe it's just buried somewhere. So I'd really like to know a little bit about how I could do real-time research on some of these false flags.
Yeah. On the spot, I'll do the best that I can with that stuff. I will just say, kind of adjacent to this, one of the other great resources we have now is Telegram, and
Oh, yeah, of course.
I'm surprised how many people I talk to and like, yeah, what websites do you visit? They say, oh, I don't visit websites, right? They get all of their information from maybe Twitter or from Telegram. And Telegram has basically replicated the forums that we used to have. And a ton of information is simply occurring on Telegram,
Hmm.
and lots of stuff. Like I looked at Telegram. So Telegram's an interesting company. It's supposedly okay. So
Yeah, right.
some Russian guys who left Russia and they're now in Dubai, and they're running a service which is maybe the greatest free speech service out there, Telegram. I looked at their terms of service, and one of the FAQs was, I found illegal or questionable stuff. What do I do? And the response to that, you can look this up on the Telegram website, was, we don't respond to any of that. so
Wow. I don't
that's
have
how
a
that's how
Telegram.
right. So
Now
that's
I'm
how
gonna do that. I'll
strong.
start one. And
Exactly.
do
That's
you
how. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, but when you do Telegram, like I don't, so I kind of relaunched my like news thing, Monica Perez show. I got my feeds back and everything from my radio station. It's all very good, but I haven't done a Telegram yet. Do you recommend that like I keep it like small the way you kind of do Discord? Do you think it gets infiltrated a lot by troublemakers or spam or whatever? Like any pointers on Telegram? Do you have a Telegram channel for Watchman Privacy?
I don't have a channel.
Okay.
I'm not a channel kind of person.
Yes,
Um,
right.
but I will say that just like the uncensored dark web, this is there's a lot of scamming that happens on Telegram. Like you go into a Bitcoin, I'm
Yeah.
part of certain Bitcoin groups, and you just type in a comment like asking a question, and you'll immediately get messages from multiple scammers who are DMing you,
Yeah.
pretending to be
Okay.
somebody else. So that's the other side of not being censored, is
Yeah.
that it requires every group has to have their own moderation, and you can have bots that moderate, and you can assign moderators who are deleting accounts and
Yes.
banning people and all the rest. But it's all
Yes.
local moderation.
Right. Okay. So like everything, if you want to take ownership, you have to, you have to take responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah, there'll be some people that say, "Hey, I wish Telegram would do something about this," and I just say, "I don't.
No, no, you don't.
I don't."
Excellent.
Um,
Excellent.
but yeah, Telegram again, interesting company. They are super free speech, at least from what we can tell. And there's all kinds of stuff. Like, I mean, you can find some gnarly stuff on Telegram, and you can find all kinds of stuff that's very clearly illegal. Just repositories of credit card numbers and all the rest. If you find yourself on certain parts of Telegram, and again, it's the uncensored web, and just
Mm.
there's probably more people using Telegram than are using these old-fashioned forums. And if you want to find like firsthand footage of the Ukraine war, that's going to be
Wow.
found
Yeah.
in Telegram. Or this ground level journalism that you're talking about, or people just taking out their phone, that stuff happens in Telegram groups. So you've got to be part of Telegram, and be searching around Telegram if you want. It's a huge tool that you're missing out on if you're not part of Telegram. And of course, there's various. So just to back up a second, so Telegram markets itself as a messenger, right? And it's true, you can send messages to people. It's not private. I don't recommend people use it as a messenger. If you want private messaging, use Signal or something like this. But it's a great way for people to organize and have groups. And you can have your own group, as you said, or you don't even have to have your own group. You can just use it
Right.
for research purposes and
Right.
to search. And just to last point on Telegram, if you go to a website like telegram-board.com, you can start to get kind of find various Telegram groups, because just like the dark web, it's not that easy. You kind of have to know. It's not like they have, oh, here's where you go to watch the grisly, footage of
Right.
somebody getting blown up in the Ukraine. It's not, they don't, that's not a search option. So you would have to go to a website like telegram-board.com, or just start searching around in Telegram, get recommendations, and people can direct you to this stuff. By the way, be careful what you have on Telegram. I mean, stuff like that could be construed as, I think that could be illegal in some cases, just to have, footage of that kind of stuff on your
Something
phone. So
gruesome.
be careful.
You think it might be illegal to have war footage or gruesome stuff? Like
I,
gruesome?
I'm not sure. I remember Andrew Tate was talking about when he got arrested in the UK for some stupid thing. They searched through all of his devices, and they charged him for having extremist material or something.
Oh,
It was
I
like
see. Okay.
wartime footage. It was like extremist
Yeah.
material. That's in the UK. So I don't know. I just
The
obviously
people
want to
who
be
are
careful.
doing it are not committing a crime, but if you expose it, you're committing a crime, you know?
Right. I mean, I don't think we have any illusions about the world we live in today, and
Right.
that's why I talk
True.
about let's just have privacy in all things and go as far as we can.
Cool. Interesting. Wow. So I'm gonna all of these resources that you've told us about, I've been keeping a list, and I will put that in the show notes, monicaperezshow.com, which will be up shortly after this comes out.
Yeah, yeah. So those are a lot of resources that people can start sifting through, and for some people, all they check is Telegram now, right? Um, I'll just mention a couple other resources. So you have your good old fashioned forums. You have 4chan and 8chan, and you'd be surprised, despite the kind of the public outrage about these websites, how many people communicate on there and share ideas. And it's old fashioned, it's ugly, it's the ugliest website you can imagine. But 4chan and 8chan are still places where a lot of people communicate. So start up your Tor browser and kind of look into those as well. We have archive.org, where you can use the Wayback Machine and see websites as they used to be years ago, before they were updated and changed. So that's another useful resource. So yeah, once you start getting into this kind of hacker mindset, you'll start to realize there's plenty of information out there at your fingertips. You just need to get be pushed in the right direction.
Is it I've never used 4chan. Is it 4chan or 8chan? Like, what is that? How do you
Uh, you're breaking up just a little bit. Can you hear me clearly, Monica?
Yes. 4chan, is it 4chan and 8chan? What is it? I forget what it is.
Yeah, 4chan and 8chan. You'll hear these in the news a lot. Places where people go to. They're basically extreme free speech forums, and there will. I mean, there have been major news stories that have news releases that have cropped up from people just posting things on 4chan and 8chan, like
Right,
original research and journalism and all the rest. But yeah, these are just old-fashioned forums. They look but ugly if you were to visit them. So you just have to get past that. And and obviously there's all kinds of depravity and horrible human beings doing horrible stuff, as you would expect from a serious free speech platform. But there's some interesting stuff to be found, and that's my point.
right, right, got it. I was trying to look for 4chan and I was just quickly, because 'cause we're talking, I was doing Google and it wouldn't take me there. It won't take me to 8chan. Is it literally the number 8 CHAN.org or dot
Yeah, that's
Wow! Wow! YouTube just it says YouTube reject I put up 4chan. I put it on in the comments here. It said YouTube rejected your comment. They won't let me write the word 4chan in the comments right now in real time.
that's extremist material, Monica.
The
But again,
URL. I just what the heck?
yeah.
Wow.
So
I've never seen that. Maybe I've seen it before, but it wasn't so clear what it was. Wow.
yeah, you're breaking up, Monica. I can hear you. It's just kind of robotic voice. So just let me know if you can't hear me. I'm
Okay,
still.
I'm gonna stop my camera. Hold on.
Yeah, but so again, we want to be using the proper operational security, because you don't need your internet service provider to see that you're visiting 4chan or 8chan, because while that there's nothing inherently wrong with that, it you don't need to bring attention to yourself. And I like to give the example. Let's say that you were ever in front of a jury for some silly reason, and they look at your Amazon history and they see that you have a black ski mask, and that you have handcuffs, and that you have, let's say, a Faraday bag to block all your signals. If those were presented in front of a jury, and those are legitimate things in and of themselves, but you never know. So it's best to do things privately, so there's simply no information about you.
I'm frustrated because my connection started breaking up when they censored that comment.
Well, I'm not totally conspiratorial, Monica, but I can be persuaded.
I'm just saying, like, that was totally weird. I mean, I have really very rarely experienced the censorship in real time. So what I'll do with a show like this is after it's live streamed, because it's so convenient to live stream to YouTube because we do the comments and everything, I'll take it down, or I'll take it down after 5 minutes. I'll just cut the video off after 5 minutes and leave it on YouTube just for search purposes. But I talk about whatever I want, basically, without getting really crazy. And this show is the most censored I've ever done so far. I mean, that's
Awesome.
I mean, the talk about a tell. I mean, wow. So good stuff. Keep going.
Well, good.
Sorry, I
And
got distracted there, of
no,
course.
I mean, and my thing is, of course, I believe in local moderation all the way down. That's why I'm basically an anarchist. I think that I can manage my own self-defense and organize with whomever I want,
Yeah.
and that I don't need a central authority ever telling me what to do, because they have their own interests and they are always therefore corruptible. And so there's no argument really for a centralized system that I can see. And yeah, I mean, all these places we're talking about, all these services can be used and are used by bad people. But so what? I mean, every tool can be used by bad people, especially government. And so if we want to start banning things, well, maybe we can start with government. Let's ban that first.
I know, it's so funny. They always want to take guns away and stuff. And I'm like, well, you first. Just you go first. Take the guns away
Exactly.
from you
Yeah.
first.
And a lot of the things I recommended, people will go there and they'll be disgusted and disturbed, and they'll find it not useful. But there might be there. My point is that there's a nugget in there somewhere, and it certainly, if nothing else, it exposes you to a different side of the internet, and one that you can certainly find different channels, different perspectives, all the rest. And sunlight's the best disinfectant. I mean, if you want people
Agreed.
to become more radicalized, then tell them they can't have a platform. That's the
And
surest way to do it.
that's what I was thinking about AI, is that they're saying it has to be completely locked down, totally private. It's gonna go crazy. We're gonna hit the Terminator threshold, and it's gonna be bad for humanity. And my answer was like, I think if everybody has access to it and you have this constant competition, it will keep it in check. And if just a huge amount of people out there understand it, it will never get to that just moment. It'll be pushed back upon. I mean, I remember when that SOPA CISPA thing where the internet went black for a day in protest to whatever regulatory regime they were trying to pull down, and my idea was just if enough people are aware of this stuff, that's your protection.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting point. I feel like AI, especially the kind of the true AI Terminator style that you made the distinction in the last episode.
Yes.
I feel like that's just a turning point for the human race, and whether that's open source or not, um, I might have to be the John Connor, and then people can join me, and we'll go from there.
But they'll be you. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm more. We have a pathocracy. We have a government that hates us. I would rather have people like you who my interests are aligned with, who can put up a good fight. Because I know if you give the exclusive monopoly to the people who hate us, it is for sure not going to work out for me.
Right. No,
Mm.
yeah, no, I take your point. Kind of like Tor or encryption, which, Tor was created by the U.S. government. Now it's used by the average person against the government in most cases. And encryption was the original creator of serious PGP encryption was threatened with what was it? Munitions export if he made that publicly available to the world. And so people kind of got around it. They actually printed it in books, and then I guess it was protected by the First Amendment. So that was an interesting fight just for encryption. And encryption, of course, is what we talk about when we talk about digital privacy. Is that are things encrypted? Do only you have the key to it? And so encryption is everything when we talk about digital privacy. So yeah, I follow what you're saying with the AI.
So, when let's get back to the deep web. You're saying that you kind of have to know this gobbledygook URL to get where you want to go. I mean, how can you use that? Or
Okay.
I understand that you're saying
Yeah.
there are resources for that, but are they good enough?
So all the stuff I just mentioned, you can access without Tor, no problem. Let's get to Tor though. So you install the Tor browser, and I would recommend you also be running a VPN. And as I said, probably don't be running your Windows operating system. Maybe use Tails if you want to go all the way install Linux, just to be fully safe. And what we're going to do then is the easiest thing I can recommend is simply to, within your Tor browser, search for some people who have collected in a handy place some of these links on the dark web. So actually Reddit onions. So an onion is a term connected to Tor. So if you go to reddit.com/r/onions, it is the subreddit for a lot of dark web stuff. And so you can see links that you can click on, and you can start your journey, right? You can get your first recommendations. And also in Reddit, you have the deep web Reddit. And so you can just search for the deep web Reddit. This is not, shady to be going to Reddit. And you can also start to get some links. And that's probably your best bet for getting onto the dark web. There's also another website called thehiddenwiki.com, thehiddenwiki.com. Go to this within Tor. This one, you want to be careful. Sometimes there's kind of scam links and stuff like this, but this will also start getting you some recommendations where you can start searching for dark web search engines. And obviously they'll immediately have all the stuff where you click on that and now you're very much in illegal territory. So you have to be really conscious with this stuff. But those are kind of 3 entry points to where you can start getting your initial recommendations. And what happens, Monica, is all this gobbledygook URL, what we're talking about is an onion link. So For us, we go to, let's say, thehiddenwiki.com. That's a URL that we can understand. We don't have any problem typing that in. For onion links, basically what's happening is you're going to have a URL and it's going to be .onion. And it's going to be a bunch of random characters that are there to basically make it difficult for somebody to just kind of stumble upon it or type it in. And what's happening with an onion link is that you are benefiting from the Tor connection, and the website itself is also benefiting from the Tor connection. So you're essentially never leaving the Tor network in any way. So it's even more secure than if you were using the Tor browser, but going to a regular website. So
Okay. I
you're
need
going to
you
start.
to recap because I did the Reddit onions, reddit.com. I have this thing up there, but it doesn't look right. You see what I have there? Can you see the screen? It says
Cannot see the screen.
reddit.com/r/onions/ a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
But if
I'm
you
visiting it myself as well right now. So
okay, and then and I got the hidden wikis easy, but the middle one was deep red. What was it?
yeah, sorry. The deep web, is it the deep web or the dark web? It is the deep web Reddit. So I would actually go to that one, the deep web Reddit.
And what are you are you just searching that? Because I'm not seeing.
DuckDuckGo is bringing it up for me, deep web Reddit. And the actual URL, if you want to type it in, is reddit.com/r/deepweb. And basically, it's everybody's been to Reddit. Reddit's now banning people who use VPNs, but not people who use Tor, interestingly enough, because Tor is used by journalists and whatever. That's their reasoning. But the first thing that comes up for me with the deep web subreddit is a link with recommendations. So if I were to click on that, then it starts to give you an idea of how you can start searching the dark web. And again, I wish there was just, hey, go to this website, done, you're finished. But it's a lot of, you go to this website, here's what they suggest, and you click on that and you see what they suggest, and you can kind of find your way from there. And I just want to give people a way to start exploring it safely and kind of find their way from there, because it's really the Wild West and there's not a whole lot that's standardized.
Okay.
And so, for example, on the deep web Reddit, if I click on the first link or the first post that's been pinned, it says, what sites and links would you recommend? And then I scroll down here and there's one called dark.fail. And so if I click dark.fail, it's just going to have another website with more links where we can see that the BBC has a onion link and Proton Mail has an onion link. And then if we go down, we see some slightly more shady things. We got the Pirate Bay's onion link, and then we've got some marketplaces and things of this sort that we can visit. And again, you need to be cautious and careful. But yeah, you just kind of start exploring link by link. And there are some search engines within the dark web, but they don't always work perfectly because, well, it's run by probably volunteers and they don't have any of the resources of Google. And so, yeah, that's kind of, without getting too complicated, that's just a one way of getting into it. And again, like the old-fashioned internet, you just kind of have to click around and read and not assume that everything's going to be digested and presented to you.
So let me back up for a second, because I could tell that my computer, because I'm just like doing this on the fly. I didn't do this in advance. So I'm like, I'm just clicking a tab and it's Google and I'm typing this stuff in and it's not liking it. So I'm not going to keep doing that. But so if I were after the show to really dig into this stuff, you're saying do the VPN first and then go to Tor?
Yes. So definitely, you don't want to be searching for the stuff on Google. You definitely want to have your VPN
Yeah.
on, and you definitely want to be using the Tor browser.
Got
The
it.
Tor browser is going to allow you to access onion links, but it's also going to give you protection so that you don't get a letter from your internet service provider. Why did you visit, this website?
Oh no, I think I already created a little problem for myself here. Like it's just puking all over me. I can't.
Yeah. So don't do what
I'm not gonna stop.
Monica's trying to do this live, but for you
Don't
listener,
do what
please
Monica's doing.
please definitely be using the Tor
It's
browser.
simple. It's just a VPN and Tor. I mean, anybody who's interested in doing this stuff, that's a given. I
That's the
see.
bare minimum. And ideally, somebody's using Tails or a Linux operating system.
Okay, got it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Okay. Like I said, Wild West internet. So you're just going to have to kind of find your way around. Um, there are search engines. There are kind of standard links that people will recommend, but they sometimes change. Sometimes they come and go. Obviously, there's a lot of darknet marketplaces on the dark web. That's where they only exist, and all of these have onion links, and you just have to know the onion link in order to go there. But also, the dark web is just for regular services too. Facebook famously has a dark or an onion link for those who want to access it more privately. I think that's a little bit weird and contradiction, but
Yeah. Facebook's the worst. Facebook's worse than YouTube for me. Like, it
yeah, I
gets
mean,
madder at me than YouTube does.
I'll take your word for it. I haven't,
Yeah, I'm
I,
sure you
I
haven't been
don't
on
know
Facebook
anything about
ever in
Facebook.
your life. You don't even have a face.
No, it's true. I am the faceless person, and so, but once you get on there, you'll see it's used for a lot of legitimate reasons. Like when Ross Ulbricht was running the Silk Road 2.0, not to be confused with the original historical Silk Road. It
Right.
was hosted on the dark web, and you could only access it through the dark web. And obviously, you have to create an account to use the service in some cases. And people are having their burner emails. They're never giving their real name. They're being very careful who they deal with. But the funny thing about things like the Silk Road, Monica, was that it was it worked. Like people trusted it because it had a reputation system, no regulation, no government oversight. It had its own reputation system. It had enforcers within the service that would investigate people and shame bad sellers and all this kind of thing. And it simply
Wow.
worked. So it's Edward Snowden said that the internet that he grew up on in the 1990s, which was this old-fashioned internet, was the purest form of anarchy he had ever experienced. And he said he learned everything about the world from that experience. And of course, it was unmoderated in some cases, or locally moderated, but
Yep.
pro free speech, and you could talk about what you want. And so that's kind of what you see when you get the state out of things, is that people will self-regulate and they will be their own form of regulation. No regulation from
Great.
above is needed. And there's a funny story about the Silk Road 2.0, which is that there was one guy who was working for Ross Ulbricht, one of his admins, and this guy basically had unfettered access to a lot of the Bitcoin that was being used to transact. And this guy never did anything untoward with the Bitcoin. He never did anything. But I think it was two FBI
One was the
investigators.
Secret Service guy.
Right. Yeah. The minute that they had their hands on it, they both pocketed it and they were arrested for doing so.
Right,
So,
and that
uh,
was not allowed to be brought up in Ross's trial.
right. So, and of those three people, the darknet admin
Right.
and two state people, one of those people was moral.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just a good example. Like we like to talk in legal terms, but it's more important to talk in moral terms. Obviously, it's dangerous to be right when your government is wrong, but I think it's important just as a mindset thing to think morally, even before you think legally. Obviously, legally, because there are consequences to whatever tyrannical government you live in, and there are random rules, which by the way vary when you cross a border. Something's now legal, so there's a lot of silliness to it. But if you think morally, it's one of the purest ways I've found of clearing the cache of the propaganda that you've received.
Yes, I learned. I was an investment banker, and I remember trying to, like, morally say, like, "Is this right? Is this wrong?" Whatever, and my boss is like, "Look, these are arm's length transactions among sophisticated people who rely on the legal framework as it's established. You absolutely must follow the law, and if you have any questions, ask your lawyer, and it would be wrong of you to not do exactly what they say," and I appreciate that. Uh, but those are contractual things, and in the real world of law, I always my very even when I look at politics and everything like that, the very first thing I try to do is assess it morally from, like, a moral point of view, and then also from the principles of, I would say liberty, or at the very least, if you want to do the legal thing, say that our foundational documents, which are both, I would say, basically moral and certainly legal, But yeah, it's an interesting distinction, and I think you have to be, again, a responsible thinking person to really get it. But there are plenty of responsible thinking people. They're the ones who are doing things like the deep web or doing what you're doing. And if you're really not capable of it, just stay out of the way, and you learn pretty quickly who you can trust and who you can't. And I mean, and another just a side thing, when I was a waitress where I made no money, basically, the wages were basically completely taxed away. It was zero. All I got was tips from people, which was totally voluntary. There was no enforcement mechanism, and I really cannot remember ever being stiffed, maybe because of social, reasons or whatever, I don't know, but yeah, I have seen in action that people's moral imperative will make the society run better.
I agree. When you have a rational society, of which there are actually pretty few in the world, so let's not underestimate
Mhm.
that, then people will enforce themselves. Like if I like to,
Consequences make it rational. It's
fair
insulating
enough.
people from consequences that makes it irrational.
Fair enough. And one thing I like to say is people say, well, what are your politics? I like to throw a curveball and say, yeah, kind of like the founding fathers, pretty close to anarchy. because because if you think about the government of the 1770s and 1780s of the US, there was no central government really with much power at all, and taxation was almost nothing, and you could live well outside of the jurisdiction of any government. And you had the Bill of Rights, which, as Edward Snowden points out, is designed to make the job of law enforcement harder to do its job. That's what the Bill of Rights is there for. And so,
It's
yeah,
yes.
you had one of the closest things to a functioning anarchy with just a bare minimum of government that you could hope for. And everybody had their own small communities and cities and counties, and of course, they had their own governments, and you could leave that if you don't like it. And
And
so, yeah,
it goes hand in hand with technology, funny enough, because the federal government really had no way of enforcing its laws in other states and distant places. It was really at probably the Civil War where they were like, "Oh, we have the technology to force federal law on states." Prior to that, I think the states, like state nullification would work. There's no enforcement mechanism in the Constitution. Like the FBI and stuff was developed. The Department of Justice was developed to enforce federal law on a post Civil War South that still was not enforcing congressional law, but that's unconstitutional. So anyway, we could get into that, but my point another time, but my point is that technology itself accelerates the ability for government to enforce laws, and that allows laws to go beyond the scope of what's natural and just for human beings, in my opinion. But that's like a deeper thought for maybe another time.
no, it's a good argument. If you don't mind, I don't know how much more time we have here, Monica.
I have plenty of time. Do you?
I do.
Yeah.
Pertaining
Okay.
to the topic of government overreach and technology, I promised myself that I would mention this. One of the big recent news stories in privacy is the arrest of two people who I considered friends and were at the cutting edge of financial privacy, the Samurai Wallet team. And so I'll just take a step back here. So privacy is really not useful. We don't really have privacy without financial privacy, because we all have to buy things, we have to pay for rent, and without financial privacy, where we're exposing all kinds of intimate and important things and purchasing useful things, then we don't really have privacy. So financial privacy has always been arguably the most important kind of privacy. And we've had cash and all these things. We know we're going to a cashless society. We know that we're purchasing most of our things online now. And so Bitcoin came, Satoshi created Bitcoin as a way to have a peer-to-peer cash system that was using anonymous accounts, essentially, not even accounts, but just anonymous identifiers. And you could use this to transact. And it was outside of the state, and all the good things about Bitcoin that I hope the audience is familiar with. There's a limited amount to them, so there's no inflation in the long run,
Right.
and no control, literally no control. The Bitcoin system, the way it works is it has no central database whatsoever. Bitcoin is simply 51% of Bitcoin nodes running anywhere in the world at one time. That's what Bitcoin is. So it's definitely an ingenious thing. But what happened was, as crypto moved along, we moved to the point where people are just gambling on this, and they have all these tokens, and people don't care about a peer-to-peer money system whatsoever, even in Bitcoin. But
Yeah, it's gambling mostly. The people I know who do it is just gambling,
absolutely,
which
and
is
none of these
fine. I mean,
people Yeah, none of these
right
people have the
on. Whatever.
cypherpunk ethos or anything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like Bitcoin does work, and especially Monero, which is a privacy cryptocurrency, you can use that today to make private transactions online. So this stuff
And
is
how
awesome.
limited is that? Is Monero is it a derivative of Bitcoin? Like, how do you know it's not gonna expand? Because that's the problem. If Ethereum is a substitute for Bitcoin and it can expand, then you really don't have a limited supply of crypto. So if it's a competitive market for crypto, you could have you know, a growing supply, which is what you don't have when it's just Bitcoin.
Right. So Bitcoin caps at 21 million. Most of those have already been created at this point. So anti-inflation is a big, I mean, these Bitcoin people are insane. Like they'll talk about how, 21 million is God's number, all this. They're crazy. Like these people are, sorry for the listeners if you're a Bitcoiner. I'm a true Bitcoiner in the sense
Bitcoin,
that I
yeah.
use this as a peer-to-peer money, but there's some crazy stuff being said. But anti-inflation is a big deal, obviously. Now with
Right.
Monero, basically everything about Monero or most of it is private, and that's what makes it a better spending tool. And if we go to the darknet markets, nobody's accepting Bitcoin, Monica. It is only Monero that is being
Really?
accepted. So that is kind of proof that this is the spending tool that you want to be using is Monero. And my friend, guy I know who runs a service that basically lets you cash out of crypto into gift cards, he posts reports about what crypto people are using. It's like Bitcoin by a small margin, and then it's Monero right after. And
Really?
you're talking about a crypto in Monero that is not, you can't publicly buy it on any exchanges. Um, it's not as well known.
Hmm,
There's a fraction
hmm.
of the amount
Yeah.
of market share, but almost as many people are using Monero as Bitcoin.
Is
So
the price stable? How does
Monero,
because Bitcoin it's like every 2 years, it just freaking goes crashes.
yeah, there's volatility in Monero, but people are using it as a spending tool, so they're not trying to save it or anything like this. They're just getting it
That's
and
what I
then.
was wondering. It's better if it's I think I'd have to think about it more closely, but the idea of separating the medium of exchange from the store of value might have merit. It's an Ezra Pound idea, but might have merit. I don't know.
Really, is that an Ezra Pound idea? That's interesting.
Yeah, isn't Ezra Pound the guy who went to jail for being like a Mussolini fascist?
Ezra Pound, fascinating guy.
Yeah,
Grew up
great,
in
unbelievable
grew
poet
up
and
in
writer. Like, oh
in
wow, his talent was
Pennsylvania,
unbelievable.
late
Yeah,
19th century. He decided one day, you know what? I'm going to move to Europe. Back before there was Google Maps, back before there was airplanes, this guy just moved to Europe, learned different languages, wrote poetry, basically just traveled
beautiful.
around. A
Yeah,
fascinating guy.
Confucius. He loved Confucius.
Exactly. Single-handedly influenced the modernist literary movement, responsible for editing T.S. Lewis's famous poem, The Wasteland, influenced or got James Joyce, I think, some of his first publications, spent a winter with William Butler Yeats and basically turned him into a famous modernist poet. Very fascinating guy. Ended up somehow in Italy doing kind of propaganda for the Mussolini government. And
Yeah.
so he was imprisoned afterward and spent a ton of time in prison, was eventually freed as an old man. And there's some pretty harrowing pictures of him as an old man. Anyway,
He
very
was in it
courageous guy.
they gave him the option to go to a mental institution instead of jail, and he took it, and from there, he commissioned Eustace Mullins' expose of the Fed.
Yeah. Let me return to my main point in defending
Really?
my
You don't wanna
friends.
talk about Ezra Pound's
No, I
poetry?
do.
Come on,
I
Gabriel.
I do.
You think we're off track?
I also want to talk about, so to return to financial privacy.
Yes,
So
yes, yes.
there's a split in Bitcoin about using this as an actual cypherpunk money, freedom money, and using it as this weird investment vehicle. And there are still a few people who use it as freedom money. A lot of these people are moving to Monero now, but the final bastion of people using Bitcoin, because it does have a transparent ledger, so you do have to have some privacy services that kind of
Yep.
make Bitcoin a little bit more private. Samurai Wallet had a number of technologies that allowed you to actually use Bitcoin and to use it in a private way. And in April of this year, they were arrested suddenly out of nowhere. They were arrested. One of them is being extradited from Portugal as we speak. And they had been following all of the guidance of FinCEN, which is this kind of deep state institution, if we want to call it that.
Yeah.
They were following all the guidance, but who cares? They were arrested. They were charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering and to run an unlicensed money transmitter. And the important thing is that The allegations basically describe just using Bitcoin or Monero in your average way, your average self-custody way. So this is an assault on not just two people who were literally following the rules that they understood, and just one morning, just doors kicked in kind of nonsense,
Well, I just
Soviet
went to
style.
Samurai Wallet and it said this website has been seized.
Okay, don't don't search for Samurai Wallet. Their website has been seized by the FBI. Another reason why we use Tor, by the way. But yeah, I mean, so
someone has to stop me. I keep doing this. I didn't think that was going to happen.
You might get some interesting letters from your.
This is don't tell me that. I don't want to hear that. And honestly, I think I'm using my son's computer. I have all these computers set up, and one of
Well,
my
then you don't have to worry.
No. I can't believe that's so funny. Well, this is proof positive that I kind of need the VPN and Tor anyway.
I agree. So, okay, so Samurai Wallet, they were a wallet, they were a technology, they were also just outspoken proponents of Bitcoin privacy. So this has been an assault on Bitcoin privacy and financial privacy generally, and it's really an assault on the tools that we use for freedom, because a lot of the stuff in the indictment is simply talking about basic things that we do for our privacy and freedom. And of course, these two gentlemen are facing like 30 years in prison. And it's kind of a Ross Ulbricht kind of situation. And they were following the law as best they understood. And they never, as far as we know, they never got any warnings either. It was just straight to jail one day.
I'm never complaining about my website getting taken down again because I don't want to go to jail. I would that's crazy. That's crazy. No warnings or anything. That's crazy. And you might just take it down, but they're putting people in jail because they're nailing squirrels to the tree so the other squirrels run away.
Exactly. And right after this, Roger Ver, who was so influential in early Bitcoin that he was called Bitcoin Jesus, he renounced his US citizenship in 2014, and he was arrested around the same time. And he's being threatened with extradition from Spain to the US.
To the US?
Yes.
This is what? Like, how does that work?
Some kind of tax crime, I think, is what they're
trying to do. Yeah.
But
wow.
He renounced his U.S. citizenship 10 years ago, specifically because he didn't want to be part of that, and he had his Bitcoin profits. So there's a huge assault on these freedom tools, and I don't want to underplay how important financial freedom is and how important Monero and private Bitcoin were to having a free life. There are people I know who live off of this stuff. You can live off of this stuff and be completely off the grid digitally and simply pay for all of your stuff in Monero and Bitcoin. And, bad reference, but Ted Kaczynski.
The whole thing was that there's a complete record of every single transaction for every single Bitcoin.
So here's the ingenuity
ingenious
of
ingeniosity.
Of ingeniousness of what Samurai Wallet was doing, because they recognize that. And so first of all, if you buy Bitcoin with no connection to your name, what we call no KYC Bitcoin, it's already by default, you're talking about random strings of characters. So tying that to you is very difficult at that point. But what Samurai Wallet did was they said, okay, you want to analyze the blockchain endlessly and see who's doing what. They had a service. Their main service was called Whirlpool. And basically it initiates a transaction of equal amounts of Bitcoin, 5 equal amounts of Bitcoin from 5 random people, and they went into a single transaction. And on the other side, they spit out five bits of Bitcoin of the same amount, and you could repeat this process endlessly. And so what you see on the blockchain is, okay, 5 random pieces of Bitcoin enter, 5 random ones appear on the other side, and then this happens again and again and again. Good luck showing any kind of deterministic link about who entered and who exited. And by the way, this whole process was self-custody. You never give up your custody during this process. It was simply initiating a transaction in Bitcoin, which in its very essence, you're never giving up custody. So it was pretty ingenious stuff.
So that's why they're in trouble.
They were running the service, and it was, so FinCEN's guidance was, as long as you're not taking custody, there's no problem.
But I'm just saying that's why they're a threat.
That's correct. That is why they're a threat. In terms of the court case, I really think there's nothing that they could say, because again, this is not custody. But yes, that is why they're being targeted.
Wow. So is there, anything that anyone could do to help them? Like, what's your Are you just praying, or what's their plan?
I mean, these guys are fighters, and so
Nice.
they are. I'm sure they, in the back of their mind, they expected something like this someday, so they're just going to fight it in court, and they're very legally literate, let's say, and so and they have good lawyers.
Good,
If
good,
you
good.
want
And they
to,
probably have a lot of money.
the funny thing is when you are nabbed for something like this, you don't have access to the funds from your service. Right? That's what happens. Like I think that has happened with Ross Ulbricht too. His millions of dollars in Bitcoin, he has no access to that. He cannot pay. Like he was, I think he was broke when it came to legal funds.
Yeah, they
So,
did seize it somehow, I don't know, or freeze it, but, I mean, couldn't these guys have a little bit on a thumb drive?
I mean,
But theoretically? Alright, you don't have
theoretically,
to
no,
comment on
they
that.
weren't like they weren't expecting it. Here's the thing:
Right, right,
they
right,
really weren't
right,
expecting because there's some things that happen
right.
that show that they really weren't expecting this.
Wow.
They were public figures. They were towing the line, and they were not expecting this. So I don't know what they had prepared. There is a
Wow.
way if people are interested, you can quickly find links to support for the legal defense if this is something you feel strongly about. But
Yeah,
I'm also just trying to bring attention
yeah.
to what's happening here.
Wow, interesting. Jeez. So this stuff, I mean, it's real. Like, it obviously the system is not liking the resistance to this. It's very interesting to me, which means to me that there are ways around it, that people are on it. Now, I don't know if they'll succeed, but maybe.
There's a psyop out there that I see in our parts of the internet, Monica, which is that they know everything and there's no hope.
Yeah.
You can't escape. I think that's the real psyop because these tools work. And how do we know they work? Tor and all this good stuff. Well, because there would be a lot more people in jail otherwise, right? If encryption didn't work, if Signal was compromised, if Tor was compromised, and we know it's not because we can read the code ourselves and see what's happening, and we can see, certain three-letter agencies trying to get access to things and they can't, like they have nothing to give, and that's publicly available knowledge. So we can have tools that allow us to live as, let's say, American and freedom lovers ought to be able to live. And I think Samurai Wallet, they were the epitome of excellent Americans and believers in freedom and privacy, the essence of it. And so that's really a shame them being attacked. But these tools work. They absolutely work. You can be off the grid. It takes some work and you want to be careful, but you can
Even from the
absolutely.
powers that be, because I was inclined to agree with the comments here, where we can conceal it mostly, but if the deep state wants to get to your stuff, they absolutely can. You're saying they absolutely could not, you
I
think?
think you have the ability to go pretty much off grid digitally.
Okay. All right.
Now, as regards, if they're talking about the Samurai Wallet guys, these guys were not trying to do that.
Right, right, right.
So yeah, they were not trying to do that. So that's why it was easy enough to nab them.
Shit. Wow. I did have a comment. Can we just address a question, or would that
Yeah,
interrupt you?
sure.
Jack just wanted to know if we could talk about Signal, how Signal is losing money and their biggest funder, which is the US government, is backing out of funding it. He saw an article about that a few months back. Does that make sense to you, or do you think that's not
Yeah,
right?
so there's all kinds of things involved in Signal. People will trace it back to government creation or funds that are connected to the U.S. government and such. And I don't try to cover any of that up. I welcome all the skepticism. What I believe in at the end of the day is encryption and open source software. And we know that this stuff works, and we see audits of it, and we see court cases where people cannot know what's happening on Signal messages. Now, you'll see a story now and then, like somebody saw messages on Signal. What happens in that case is somebody had physical access to the phone, and they were able to see what you're able to see when you have physical access to your phone, right?
Mhm.
And so this stuff does work. If you're skeptical of Signal, there's many others out there. I just
Right.
interviewed the creator of Simplex Chat, so maybe that's something you can look into. But encrypted chat messengers, there's an abundance of them. If you're skeptical of Signal, that's fine. Try something else.
Uh, and then JC says, I just think it's good practice to never put anything online that you wouldn't want the feds or public to know about. Honestly, I grew up with pens and paper, and my older sisters always said, never put anything in writing that you don't want other people to see. So whether it's digital or not, I find even when want to text something that's like I want to keep private, I'll pick up the phone and make the phone call. I don't know if they voice to text every single thing yet. I don't think they do actually. And I think that if they have a warrant for your phone, they can look on your phone. You're not allowed to erase the stuff that's on there, but I've never heard of them getting a warrant to play actual voice conversations other than, when I was growing up and my older brothers were up to no good and we had a tap on our phone.
Right.
Literally, the cops had a tap on our phone. But so, I mean, would you say that, like that kind of a Gabriel, would you say that JC, you don't even think of that? I don't think it's good practice to put anything.
No, I'll, yes, I think that the more you have offline, the better. So I'm here just kind of defending the few essential online tools that we probably do need and want, right? We do want to be able to communicate with people who are not, we can't meet at Starbucks, right? We're not just right down the
Yeah.
road. We do want to be able to buy things
Yeah.
online, and not everybody, people aren't just accepting cash, right? You can't just buy your stuff online, and
Yeah.
people are accepting cash. So there are a few instances where we do need some of these tools, but in general, yeah, I'm a big proponent. In fact, there's a lot of people in my circles who say, yeah, encryption is the key to everything and it will solve all our problems. And I'm the one who says, if you want privacy, uninstall that encrypted app, as opposed to
Yeah.
install more. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely on board with what JC is saying. Keep things offline as much as you can.
And
Absolutely.
I do like the kind of three-dimensionality of your viewpoint where you love privacy and encryption. You also love transparency and openness. You also love human interaction, meet space, actual privacy. I mean, it's good. It's complex. You're not just have some agenda that you're trying to direct people towards, and it makes sense to me. Like nothing that you say like doesn't check out in my, like truth dar.
Yeah, I say that I'm a shill for privacy and freedom as I see it. I don't have any sponsors. I get sponsorship emails all the time. I immediately delete them. I am only interested in helping people out, and obviously, if that includes telling people like, yeah, I interviewed this person with an encrypted chat, and I think it's awesome, but I'm going to tell you to talk to somebody in person first because that's always preferable, and we never know. Of course, we never know at the end of the day. Big fan of uh, non-digital tools. In fact, I'm an aspiring neo-Luddite, to be honest. So yeah.
I love that. An aspiring neo-Luddite. I actually, when I go for a walk with a friend of mine who's also a listener, I sometimes I myself will leave my phone in the car. She'll have her phone and I'll like whisper because I know she has her phone, which is off
Yeah.
in her pocket.
Or
Maybe
or
I'm
these
crazy.
or these Amazon Ring doorbells that are just endlessly surveilling you when you're when you're driving by. Um,
It's crazy.
I'm a bit antagonistic. In fact, Ring doorbell. I said, let's see. I tweeted something a few months ago. I said, um, Ring doorbell. People who own Ring doorbells are the only real menace to the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh.
And then
I
and then I,
moved into a house that had one and I tried to pull it out and put a regular doorbell in, and
Yeah, and it's not
they
just
said
you,
it was
Monica,
gone.
and it's
Yeah,
not just you, it's your neighbors, right?
yeah.
I have a place that I drive by sometimes, and they have
I
a Ring
didn't think
doorbell,
about
and I
that
know that
though.
they're
Yeah.
soaking up my license plate and my face and all the rest. Who knows what's happening? And
Could I
so,
just put a
yeah,
piece of tape over the camera?
over
Like, I'm serious,
over
like
their camera,
Zuckerberg would do? What?
over their camera. Yeah, I don't
Over
know
my
where it,
camera? No, that I moved into this house, it has a Ring thing, and I could not I wanted to swap it out for analog,
right,
and the guy was like, "They ripped all the cords and everything out, you cannot do that." And in order to make it make a sound, it which I don't even care. Like, I grew up without a doorbell at all. My father's like, "There's absolutely nobody I wanna see." So we didn't have a door,
right.
but it has a camera on it. I don't ever use the camera, but I imagine it's hooked up. Could I just put a little piece of
I would
electrical tape over it?
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Electrical tape, painter's tape. I do that all the
Yeah.
time.
Okay, good.
Let's say you even go to a Amazon drop-off location where you can have private Amazon purchases. You approach from the side, you put just a little sticky note over that, then because they oftentimes have a camera. I'm a big fan of putting sticky notes and tape over any camera that you come across.
Wow, okay, yeah, I mean, even at the airport, you are allowed I don't know if people know this, they're taking pictures of you now when you go up to show your passport, and I always opt out. I mean, I'm not saying they're not taking the picture anyway, but I step to the side, I opt out, they have to accept that. But yeah, Ring cameras are a menace to the neighborhood. All
And
right,
then
I
and
will.
then I tweeted again and I said, just to clarify my previous position, I'm encouraging you to actively discriminate against your neighbors who use the Ring doorbell.
Yeah, okay.
And
I'm
and
gonna
then Ring Doorbell responded to that, which was a mistake because I'm a super troll on Twitter. So they shouldn't have done that, but they tried to respond and say we respect your privacy. But Monica, I recently also tweeted a solution. I finally discovered a solution for people how to approach your neighbor who has a Ring doorbell. And that's and I tweeted a picture on Amazon of a Freddy Krueger mask. So
Nice. That's a great idea. Well, I remember when I moved to Texas and my husband gave me a warning. He's like, this is a castle doctrine state or whatever. If you're having a little scuffle with the neighbors, don't step on their property because they can shoot you dead. And I thought it made for some very respectful neighbors, but I thought you were going to, yeah. But anyway, I will put a little piece of tape over the Ring doorbell. I don't even
there you
want
go.
it. I don't want the doorbell to ring. The only person who ever rings it is like UPS. I think I might just unplug it.
Yeah. Let me just clarify something. I meant Jason Voorhees, not Freddy Krueger. So
The mask, the Halloween mask?
correct. Yeah, the
Yeah.
hockey mask.
The
So.
hockey mask, hockey mask. Yes, very good. That's perfect. I like that. My son, it's hilarious. He has Down syndrome. And when lockdown came to California, they said you have to wear a mask. And we got in the car, we were going somewhere, and they were serious. Like in the beginning, LA was crazy. I mean, it's just you can see how one day you can just snap into like the Third Reich. It was just like that. And people thought I was the bad guy. I was like, are you guys kidding? So my son, it's like, let me get my mask. And he runs into the house and he comes back out and he has this werewolf mask on. And I'm like, right on, bro. It was like animatronic, like the mouth opens and stuff. And it was like, and he would walk around the neighborhood like that, scare the shit out of people. I'm like, you know what? You want masks? He's got a mask.
There you
So
go.
yeah, that was very
And
funny.
now, by the way, it had been illegal in most places. It's illegal to
Right.
wear a mask, and then suddenly it's legal. And now, of course, it's returning to being illegal to wear a mask because obviously privacy respecting people. Some of them wear these fake masks of somebody's fake face or something like this, but it's actually illegal in most cases to wear a mask. And then one day it's legal and
They're
it's required.
returning to that now. I don't know what's leading the charge. It was I kind of want to say it's Chicago because they're conducting a psyop to like put people in like curfews and all that. So someplace I just heard on the radio today, it wants to reintroduce the masks being illegal, but I don't know how they can have them mandatory and banned at the same time. But if anyone could figure it out, it's our fearless totalitarian dictatorship.
Well, criminals love when masks are the norm. So.
Crazy. So did we cover everything that you felt we should know for this round?
Yeah, I think so. I just wanted to give people an introduction to the dark web, obviously the tools, the proper operational security, and then it's probably wise for people to go and play around as carefully as you can. Again, don't download anything, don't give any payments or all this kind of basic stuff, but just start to get a feel for it, and you will find yourself on some interesting places before you know it.
I cannot believe that I literally just nearly took myself down going to some of these places without the VPN and
This
Tor.
website has been seized by the FBI.
Yeah, that's what it said, and I was gonna be like, "Oh, look at how cool this is," but I just was like, "You know what? I should probably close this tab." Shit. But I'm just amazed that a comment got taken down in real time, and then we started having connectivity issues, which people who watch me, I'm live sometimes 5 times a week. I basically never have those problems. I rebooted the computer right before we started, so, like, everything was closed. There should be no reason for it. I'm plugged into the wall. It's not on Wi-Fi. Like, there's absolutely no reason for it. There's nobody home, nobody else on the network. No reason for it. Well, I mean,
It's
obviously
awesome.
there's a reason, but yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
it's awesome.
So I will promote this show across rockman.com/Monica Perez, my podcasting, but it's going to have to go on. I couldn't even put it up on Facebook for some reason. And now I will take it down off YouTube in a day or two. So, all right. So tell people just, what you have a book, you have a website, you have your show. Where do you want people to find you? What's best for you? And how can people support you if you accept support?
If you just go to watchmanprivacy.com, then you'll see what I have to offer. Basically, I would just encourage people follow my podcast. I give a lot of useful information, freedom and privacy techniques. I don't have a lot of the restraints that a lot of the weaker privacy people have. I don't avoid politics and social commentary, and I am a little bit antagonistic when it is required, which is really important because otherwise you're lying. And so, if you like all that, then you'll find that on my podcast or on Twitter. And I have a course coming out, actually, Monica, that your audience might be interested in. It's not available yet, but it's going to be called Escape the Technocracy, the digital privacy course that they don't want you to take. And I'm just going to share a lot of my strategies and tell people how to be as off-grid as you can while still using some privacy tools. So that's coming soon. If you're following me in any way, I'll let you know about that.
So I'm suggesting that if people are interested in that, they will be able to hook up with that at watchmanprivacy.com. It's a good place to start. Escape the Technocracy course coming soon. And
you'll be able to access it. My goal is access it through Tor and download the files yourself, pay in Monero or any private option you want. I'm not going to collect any information about you. So everything I do is with a full privacy ethos. Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, when you have people, what is your favorite? Like, do you direct people to Rumble or BitChute? Like, where would you go to watch you?
I'm a podcast listener, so I download my local podcast app and find it there. But so, yeah, I don't really have a preference. Odyssey, I guess I tend to go to more than others for whatever reason. But yeah.
And so you're on iTunes?
I'm on iTunes. Yeah, I
Okay.
haven't checked my reviews. People don't like my political commentary and my social
But
commentary.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with your social commentary, but I have always liked your political position. So, and I actually really liked it when we first started talking, and I realized that we were on the same page on that stuff because it helps if somebody shares your values and goals, it's it's a little it's gives you confidence that the thing that they're expert in that they're sharing with you comes from that perspective, even if you can't be an expert yourself.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you and I like to bash as many people as I can who deserve it, and the progressives and the left-wing people absolutely deserve it. And so I tell them that we don't want them in Bitcoin. There's somebody who wrote a book called The Progressive Bitcoiner or something. Totally untrue. Bitcoin was an anarchist process through and through. It was a anarchist project through and through. Satoshi was an anarchist, and these left-wing people and the progressives, they don't believe in privacy. They believe in state-controlled money as the creation of the state. They believe in centralized government. They do not believe in privacy. Privacy exists only when a government does not have access to your stuff. Privacy cannot be granted top-down. It's an event that only occurs bottom-up.
That's a lot of responsibility. But I agree with you, like left-leaning libertarians who used to like want legalizing pot. I was like, if they're going to pay for your healthcare, they are going to tell you what you can and cannot put into your body. Like you cannot be that. There is no such thing. So, but yeah, the only thing is that it takes responsibility. And with like the VPN and Tor, does the VPN still kind of prevent you from getting to certain commercial sites, or do you think they're getting better with that?
I use a VPN 100% of the time that I'm
Okay.
online, and it works for in most cases. And there's some strategies you can do. Like, for example, if you're using a VPN server outside of your country, maybe try it within your country if you're having trouble with your bank or something. And if it's not working, try a different server. You can just start up the VPN and try a different location, different server. That can fix a lot of things.
Okay.
So yeah, there are a lot of websites that don't like VPNs and they hate. My friend recently said, for example, Google really hates people who take their privacy seriously, because if you go to Google with a VPN, sometimes they'll give you the CAPTCHAs and you'll have to click all the fire hydrants, and as many as you click, you've never clicked enough.
You get
in their
more,
eyes.
yeah.
So
You're training their AI. They're sicking it to you.
right. But in general, I find that most places are perfectly fine with a VPN. So you just got to go and test it yourself.
And now who needs Google after all the great tips you gave us of how to find the real truth?
Yeah, there we go. At least it's a start anyway.
Excellent. That's super excellent. Watchmanprivacy.com, Gabriel Custodiet. Thank you so much. Thank you all for listening. I'm going to ask you, Gabriel, to just hang on a second to make sure that I've gotten your individual feed uploaded. And yes, I love it when people show up live, ask some questions, have a nice chat. Thank you. But of course, you can always hear all of my shows on your favorite podcasting platform. This is Monica Perez, and thanks for coming.